Hi, I'm Billy Smith, owner of Billy's Midway Arcade in Hawthorne, New Jersey. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the game that started me down the road to what would become Billy's Midway Arcade, Miss Pac-Man. I first acquired this Miss Pac-Man in spring of 1996. Got it as a wedding present for my wife and I, and got it from a friend of a friend who lived in Bayonne, New Jersey. Had to carry it down 3 flights of stairs on the outside of the house in a rainstorm. Load it in the back of my friend Todd's late 70s Chevy Suburban to get it home. Of course, pulled up in front of the house, my wife looks at me and says, "Where are you going to put that?" I said, "In the house." "What are we going to do with it?" "We're going to play it." In order to talk about Miss Pac-Man, we actually have to start the story with Pac-Man, a game that was developed by Namco in 1980, originally called Pac-Man, and distributed in the United States by Bally Midway Corporation. Midway sold over 100,000 Pac-Man machines in the United States, followed by 115,000 Ms. Pac-Man machines. No other game up to this point had sold over 100,000 units. In order to understand how Ms. Pac-Man came to be, here's a little story. In 1978, the hot game was Space Invaders, followed by Galaxian in 1979. Space Invaders had been a black and white game, where Galaxian was now in color, and the ships could swoop down at you, but it was still a little too similar to Space Invaders. The public was looking for the next new thing. Namco released 2 more games in 1980, Rally X and Pac-Man. The industry people thought Rally X was going to be the next big hit, but Pac-Man became so popular that arcades had rows of Pac-Man machines instead of just one standalone cabinet. In the early 80s, 9 MIT college students, led by Doug McRae and Kevin Curran, were operating a small assortment of games on campus, but they wanted to do more. They didn't know how to go about building cabinets or getting involved in the hardware, so they decided to do an enhancement kit. They first took apart an Atari Missile Command machine and figured out what all the code did. Then they upgraded the game to something called Super Missile Attack, which was basically an enhanced version of Missile Command with a few new enemies and different action. McRae and Curran began a small business, selling their enhancement kits out of the back of an arcade coin-op magazine for $295 a pop. Atari got wind of this and charged them with copyright infringement and took them to court, with the case lasting almost 2 months. Eventually, Skip Paul, the general counsel of Atari, asked them what the guys were after. Curran and McRae said they simply wanted to make video games and made a deal with them. Atari agreed to drop the case with prejudice and pay them $50,000 per month for the next 2 years to make games if they stopped making enhancement kits. They agreed. Ironically, Curran and McRae already had an enhancement kit to Pac-Man in development at the time. They next tried to bluff the Bally Midway executives, but David Moravsky, one of the execs, offered them a deal to make a sequel rather than selling enhancement kits. The enhancement kit, designed by General Computer, later called GCC Technologies, turned Pac-Man into Crazy Otto, in which Pac-Man had legs. That was not acceptable to the Midway guys, and they decided to create a female character instead. After many back-and-forth sessions with production staff, they changed the name from Pac-Woman to Miss Pac-Man, and eventually landed at Ms. Pac-Man. Ms. Pac-Man had the same basic gameplay as Pac-Man, except that it featured 4 mazes instead of just 1, and the ghosts didn't follow any real set patterns, so they were a little harder to fool. Here are the rules of gameplay. Your mission is to move Ms. Pac-Man around the maze, eating all of the dots, and occasionally a prize will appear and bounce around the maze. Now be careful because there are 4 ghosts out to get you. They are invincible, and if they touch you, you lose a life. In the maze, there are large flashing power pellets, also known as energizers, that you can eat that make the ghosts vulnerable for a limited time. When you eat a ghost, you get 200 points, and every ghost afterwards earns you 2 times that amount. So 200, 400, 800, and up to 1,600 points for the 4th ghost. If you eat all 4 ghosts while still energized, you can earn up to 3,000 points. Once you eat all the dots in the maze, you move on to the next board. In the game, once you beat a certain amount of boards, you'll receive an animated intermission, which gives you much needed break in between the action. Cool bonus fact, on Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, if you reach level 256, graphical garbage will fill the right half of the screen, and the best you can hope for is to eat the dots you can see, eat the ghosts you can see, but technically you can't complete the level, so eventually you just have to commit Pac-Acide. With the success of Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, Midway went on to create an expanded family of Pac-Man games, including Super Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man, which combined a video game and pinball, a pinball machine that was called Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man, another video game called Junior Pac-Man, Pac-Man Plus, Pac-Land, which was based on the cartoon, Pac and Pal, and a game called Professor Pac-Man, which was more of a multiple choice quiz game that didn't sell too well. Only 400 were made. So now that you got a little background on the Pac family, come on down to Billy's Midway Arcade. Meet them for yourself.
Pac-Man.